YTBC, what's the deal? So people have been asking me my thoughts on the upcoming fight between Lemieux and Triple G. Before I say that, let me just get into some really good middleweight fights that I recommend some of you go back and watch if you haven't seen. People are talking about this fight as a fight of two guys with high knockout percentages. We know Golovkin is 33-0 with 30 knockouts. Lemieux is 34 wins, 2 losses with 31 knockouts. Just some really good fights in the history of the middleweight division, man. Always exciting to watch, whether it's Leonard versus Hagler, pretty much Hagler versus Hearns, Hagler versus Mugabe. You can go through all the Hagler fights. Even the Duran fight was a good fight. Fulmer versus Basilio. Some recent stuff, Pavlik Taylor, the first fight. Miranda and Arthur Abraham, their first fight. Rodrigo Valdez versus Monzon, their second fight. Second fight was so close, man. You could probably give that to Valdez. Probably he knocked down Monzon. Probably won about 7 or 8 rounds out of that fight. Close fight, though. Hopkins, Tito, Jorge Castro versus John David Jackson, another really good underrated fight. McClellan versus Jackson, the first fight. Eubank versus Nigel Benn, their first fight. Dick Tiger versus Gene Fulmer, their first fight was a good fight. Duran versus Barkley, that was a big upset. That was a really good. I can't believe Duran was able to stand in there with Barkley. Well, actually, I can because of the fight he had with Hagler. But just, man, going toe-to-toe with Barkley was pretty impressive. Graziano versus Tony Zell. If you guys have not seen those fights, go watch those 3 fights. If you like Ward versus Gotti, Graziano versus Zell is the fight trilogy for you, especially that first fight. I don't want to give it away, but the first fight played out like a damn movie. But back to this fight, man. I mean, it's going to be a good fight. You know, Lemieux, he fights downhill. The thing with him, when I watch his fights, I've seen a lot of his fights. I've seen the Upshaw, the Fernando Guerrero fight, the Rosado, the Jacome fight, the Rubio, even the fights he lost. You know, I watched them all. Well, I watched a lot of his fights, about 9 of them, about 8 or 9 of them. And he fights downhill. Obviously, we know that with the high KO percentage, but everything he throws hard, man. He's like a pitcher, man. If you guys watch Major League Baseball, he's like a pitcher. Only thing he has is a fastball. He throws his jab hard and fast, his right hand, his hooks. Everything's at one speed. He fights stiff. He needs to loosen up a little bit, man. Bend, place your shots. You know, if you're trying to land that right uppercut, he just goes right in front of guys and just hard right uppercut. It's like, man, throw a jab, change the velocity on your jab, place shots. Every shot doesn't have to be a hard finisher, but that's how he fights, downhill. Now, the fight, he fought against Rosado. I remember during that fight, they were talking about that he's learned some of the different nuances of the game and they're teaching him how to settle down. I really don't see it, though, man. He, depends on his power. Shit, if I had 34 wins with 31 knockouts, I would probably depend on my power, too. So it's, easier said than done to tell him not to go out there and look for the KO because he has a high percentage. But, dude, you have to learn how to not just throw fastballs all the time. Throw a slider or a screwball or a knuckleball or a curveball, something. Everything's fast. So, it's not going to be hard to find him. When he does have trouble, like when he had trouble with Rubio and he lost, Rubio was moving. Rubio was taking his best shots. Rubio was keeping a jab in his face, keeping his distance. Lemieux had a little bit of trouble with that. Golovkin, I know he's like, man, people are, some people think he's the next, Monzon, Hagler, Lamada, but some people, they don't think Golovkin is all that great of a fighter. I think he's a really good fighter. He's the best middleweight, I believe, at the division, although he's not a undisputed champion. He still, to me, is the best guy at the division. I've seen a lot from him, man. Even when he fought a guy like Willie Monroe, people don't want to give him credit for that fight. But if you just look at the styles, I'm not talking about accomplishments and how many world champions I'm just talking about their style of fighting. Willie Monroe is a slick moving southpaw fighter, young guy. He was landing some shots on Golovkin. Golovkin was able to take them. We know Monroe's not a big, huge KO artist, but Golovkin was taking his shots. He fought inside. He was walking them down. He cut the ring off. He has really good footwork, man. You're not going to be 345 wins and 5 losses in the amateurs and not have good footwork. What I've seen from Golovkin is, he can mix it up a little bit, even though we know his last 20 opponents have not reached the final bell. It's not his power that I look at. It's his footwork and how he can cut the ring off and how he can box. He's not a guy, if you stand in front of him like Monroe or Gill where they were moving, he's not a guy, if you're going to start moving, he's not going to know what to do. He's not one of those type of guys, man. He can move right along with you and he can keep pressure on you. And when I mean pressure, not just coming in with wild left and right hooks, he can keep a jab on you. You know, when he does this thing, I wish I had the camera on me to show you, but he does this thing where he'll be standing in front of you, say he's in his orthodox position, then he can take his right foot and walk towards you, but keep a high guard. And when he walks towards you with that right foot and he plants it, he'll let a left uppercut go to the body. He kind of does this, man, where they don't teach you this in gyms a lot, teach you how to, trainers don't like to teach you to walk forward. They like to teach you to step forward. If you're an orthodox fighter and you got your left foot, they want you to step forward with your left foot and drag your right foot behind, drag it behind, glide in the ring. He can actually step forward, but keep position, keep his balance. He's a handful, man. Golovkin is a handful. I don't think he's the best middleweight I've ever seen, but I think he's the best of today. I think he's going to win this fight by knockout just because I don't think Lemieux has enough in his arsenal, man. He's going to come straight forward. He's going to be easy to find. Now, is there a possibility that he can clip Golovkin once they get into an exchange? You damn right. If he hits Golovkin flush and he clips him, you know, Golovkin's not a robot now, man. If he gets clipped hard by Lemieux, he could be knocked down or be in some trouble. And he will be the one that, is going to have to fight hurt. I haven't seen him fight hurt yet. It's going to be a good fight, though. He has been in there with a guy with incredible power. I think Curtis Stevens is a hard hitter, and he was in there with him, and he took his shots. But I'm going to go with Golovkin. I'm not going to make this video too long, but I'm going to go with Golovkin by knockout, maybe the middle rounds. I don't see it going the distance just because of Lemieux's style. He's not going to go backwards and try to, kill the clock. He's not that type of guy. He's a come forward, straight down the line, fastball pitcher. And Golovkin's right there, man. He's a come forward fighter too, but he can step back a little bit, can go side to side, but he has more in the toolbox than David Lemieux. Should be an explosive fight, a good fight, but I'm going with Golovkin by a crushing KO. I'm out.